Jeff Coffey talks about meeting the guy he replaced in Chicago, Jason Scheff, a long time before he was in the band. I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music. Peter Cetera left Chicago in the 80s, replaced by Jason Scheff. And his replacement ended up being Jeff Coffey, who was only in the band, well, a little under 2 years. Largely an unknown, a lot of folks just thought he was green until they heard him. Now, you can't please everyone, and Jason didn't go into this blind, knowing that for some fans it would take time to be accepted as Chicago's lead singer, while others would never accept him. And in a second, you're going to hear a classic story of a person who just wanted Jason Scheff. And we also talked to Jeff Coffey about some of the negativity that's just bound to be out there. And he seems to know that's par for the course, and it's a subject we've talked about on this channel for a little while. But first, I started by telling him a story, and maybe you've done this. Maybe you're smarter than me and you've not done this. For instance, when I first heard the Eagles, I had decided the guy that I was looking at in the back of the album cover, Glenn Frey in this case, was the guy who was singing all the Don Henley songs, because I'd figured the guy with that voice looks like him. I had no reason to think that. I just decided that was the guy, but I had it backwards. It was the guy with the afro, Don Henley, singing the Don Henley songs, because that was his songs. I kind of did the same thing with Jimmy Pankow of Chicago, one of the horn players, just because I thought he looked like a lead singer. I shared it with Jeff Coffey.
Before I forget, James Pankow, to me, when I saw him when I was 14 years old, I don't know why. I know James sang throughout a little bit in Chicago, but it was mostly the other guys, Robert and Terry and Peter. But when I saw him, because he was, to me, the coolest guy in the band, I assumed he was the lead singer. It's strange how that happens. I'm going, no, he's the singer. What? But I remember thinking, he is the coolest looking man I have ever seen in my freaking life. I want to be like him, says the guy with no facial hair on the side. Anyway, but did you ever meet Jason?
Yes. Well, actually, I met Jason years before I got with Chicago. One of the bands that I was in the 90s was a band from Florida called House of Dreams. And in 96 or 97, we got a deal with RCA Records, and we went to LA and recorded our first record with Keith Olsen at Goodnight LA Studios right there in Sound City Complex, which is no longer there. Jason was longtime friends with Keith Olsen. I don't know if you're familiar with Keith Olsen, but he worked with Fleetwood Mac, Ozzy, Whitesnake, and a lot of big 80s groups. Anyway, one day we're in the studio and Jason pops in for a visit. Oh, it's Jason Scheff from Chicago. And he brought in this CD of, they were putting together this relation of artists doing a Zeppelin tribute. And he did Stairway to Heaven, all vocal. Every part was a vocal. The drums, the bass, the keys, the guitars, the vocals. Everything was done with his voice, multi-track. It was phenomenal. So we sat and listened to that. And then, he stayed for a little while, and that was my first time meeting Jason. And Chicago was big in my life, especially in the 80s was the time that I was really getting into music. But I remember hearing all the 70s stuff on the radio as a kid. But the 80s era was big for me. And then when Chicago 18 came out in 85 with Jason, loved that record. I was a fan of Jason. That was actually the first time that I actually saw Chicago live. They came to town, and I went to the show. It was killer. And I love the way his voice sounded on record,
If someone would have whispered in your ear when you were there, by the way, you're going to replace that guy, in a million years, would you have been able to?
I've thought about that before. That would have been weird, if someone would have said that. But I remember seeing the show, how vividly, the first time seeing Chicago live. But no, that would have been weird, But I have thought about that before, I never in a million years that I ever think that I would play with Chicago, It was a bizarre turn of events.
Must be strange being up there. The thing is, there's so many layers, right, to your history and your love for the band. And when you're up there and you're not in the audience, you're up there in the middle of it. You're up there helping create it. That's got to be a surreal experience that people who have not been up there would have a hard time understanding.
Yeah, it is kind of surreal. Fortunately, it felt so natural. It was very natural. It was very much in my wheelhouse, play low, sing high. That was my thing. I love this music, and so it was surreal, and it was kind of a neat experience for me to see the audience's reaction to these songs while I'm playing them with the band. Those are experiences that I'll never forget. It slowly made me feel a part of it, Even though I had nothing to do with the creation of this music, I was helping to bring it to life for these people for that 2 hours every night. And so those were great memories. Those are great experiences.
It'd be nice if you and Peter and Jason just formed a band and got over it.
Hey, I'm up for that. That would be cool.
Well, Peter had said this summer, I did a report. I was actually on vacation when I did the report. I remember that he wanted to do a duet. He wanted to do a duet thing. He'd love to do something with McCartney and I forget the other person. And I remember going, and everyone's criticizing him, going, "What's wrong? Peter Cetera wants to do that. Leave him alone. He's just a guy. He's a singer. He's got a history. He's earned it." I don't know why there's so much hate on certain people. I'm going, who cares? Let's let him do what he wants to do. Really,
Follow it or don't follow it. Yeah, it's easy to hate right here at the little typewriter anonymously, It's very easy to do that.
How was it for you when you joined? There must have been people, I didn't see it, but there must have been people who just, that Jeff Coffey guy, damn him. Did you ever see any of that kind of stuff? Or they were pretty good to you, though, weren't they?
I will have to say, I was very fortunate there. For a lot of people really accepted me. Obviously, there were definitely people who were, you have your different groups of Chicago fans who are people who are, the only Chicago that exists for me are the original 7. You have those people. And rightfully so. That's your thoughts. It's fine. Then you have the people who are, diehard certain eras of the band, But for the most part, it was very receptive. I have a funny story, though. I knew that going in, I was filling some big shoes, both guys. I knew it was going to be just one show at a time, I was going to show up on stage and people are going to go like, who the hell is this guy, So I just wanted to warm them over to me one show at a time. And usually I would get them by the first song, which was Question 67, 68. I would usually get them by that song or maybe, the second song I sing. But there was this one woman, I don't even know her name. Even if I did, I wouldn't mention her name. But she was clearly, diehard Jason Scheff fan. And she wasn't having it, And I will never forget, I go on stage, and at first she's dancing and singing, and then she very, sternly just shoots me the finger. And I go, okay, well I'm playing. That's a first. No one's ever done that before. Does that mean she's digging it or what? So then she just keeps on, and then she comes over and she does it again. I say, wow, that's 2 in a row. Wow, that's weird. That was a new experience for me, But I would just kept playing the gig, and then she did it for a third time. And then I didn't see her for the rest of the show. So, that was a worst case scenario. But for the most part, 98% was extremely positive.
Yeah.
I got a kick out of that, on the bus after the show. I was telling the guys, I'm like, what? What'd
they say? Did they see it? Did they see it?
Yeah, Keith saw it. Keith Howland saw it. And he says, was that going to you? I said, yeah, that was unique. That was interesting,
Jeff Coffey left Chicago in the beginning of the year and has just joined on to be the bass player for Don Felder's band. Don Felder, of course, the ex-lead guitarist for the band The Eagles. Not a bad gig and a nice pairing. It'll work out even better if Jeff gets a chance to sing an awful lot because he's a great singer. We'll have information on Jeff Coffey where you can find his Facebook and his webpage and all the information on what he's doing in the description of this page. Check him out. I really hope him and Don Felder record together. That would be great. Before we go, thank you so much for all the folks who sold out our first edition of our t-shirts line. We didn't expect that, but thank you so much for supporting us. If you want to order a hoodie or a t-shirt or a mug, there'll be links in the description of this page, or just go to my webpage, johnbeaudin.com or rockhistorymusic.com. It'll send you back to my page. Make sure you comment on our video, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. I'm John Beaudin. This is Rock History Music.